The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with anxious voices. Representatives from 300 species filled the massive hall, their concern visible in every gesture and expression. The emergency session had been called within hours of the latest crisis, and tension hung thick in the air. Ambassador Thelrax of the Vorentine Collective stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically. The Krath Empire has declared war on 3 systems simultaneously: the Borderline Colonies, the Teffer Federation, and the Mining Guild territories. This aggression cannot stand. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Krath had been growing bolder for years, but this was unprecedented. Their military might was legendary, and few species wanted to face them directly. "We must form a peacekeeping force," suggested Representative Quali, her crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "Deploy neutral observers to the conflict zones." "Peacekeeping?" scoffed the Drachner delegate, his scales rattling. "The Krath respect only strength. We need a military coalition, but who will lead it?" Another voice called out. "Who has the forces to stand against 300 Krath warships?" The debate continued for hours. Some argued for economic sanctions. Others pushed for diplomatic negotiations. A few suggested offering the Krath territories elsewhere to satisfy their expansion desires. The chamber descended into the familiar pattern of endless discussion that had defined the council for centuries. Director Sarah Chen sat quietly in the human delegation section, her expression neutral. She was a small woman by human standards, with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. Next to her sat Commander James Park and their assistant, a young Vex named Kilo who had recently joined the Human Diplomatic Corps as an intern. "Why don't we say something?" Kilo whispered, his antennae twitching nervously. "The humans have the 3rd largest fleet in the galaxy. Surely your voice matters here." Chen smiled slightly. "Sometimes the best move is to watch and listen, Kilo. Let them talk." At that moment, the Krath ambassador entered the chamber. Warlord Krathener was an imposing figure, nearly 3 meters tall, with armored plating that gleamed under the chamber lights. He walked to the center with deliberate slowness, his heavy footsteps echoing. "The Galactic Council wastes time with words," Krathener announced, his voice booming. "The Krath Empire takes what it needs. The weak fall. The strong survive. This is the way of the universe. This is barbarism," Thelrax protested. "We have laws, protocols, agreed-upon boundaries. Your laws mean nothing to the Krath." Warlord Krathener's eyes scanned the chamber, landing on the human section. "And what of the humans?" "I notice they sit silent. Perhaps they are wise enough to recognize superior strength when they see it." All eyes turned to Director Chen. She stood slowly, smoothing her simple gray suit. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "The Krath Empire has made its position clear." "We acknowledge your statement," Krathener laughed, a harsh sound that filled the chamber. "Acknowledge? Is that all? I expected more from the species that claims to be so advanced. Perhaps humans are simply cowards hiding behind technology." "We prefer the term efficient," Chen replied calmly. "Humanity doesn't engage in wars anymore, Warlord. We find them wasteful and counterproductive." This statement caused surprised reactions throughout the chamber. Several delegates laughed nervously. The concept seemed absurd to many species present. "You don't engage in wars?" Krathener's amusement was evident. "How convenient. And what do you do when someone threatens you?" "We neutralize threats," Chen said simply. The Krath warlord found this hilarious. "Neutralize? What poetry? The humans have become philosophers instead of warriors." "How disappointing." Turned to address the full council. "Since the humans are so enlightened, perhaps they will understand this message clearly. The Krath Empire hereby claims the Titan mining colony in human-controlled space. You have 48 hours to evacuate all personnel and transfer control. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what real neutralization looks like. Our fleet will turn your colony into dust, and then we will take 10 more systems as compensation for your defiance." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The boldness of threatening humanity directly stunned many delegates. Humans were known as peaceful, but not weak. Their technology was advanced, their military capable. This was an unprecedented provocation. Chen remained still for a long moment. Commander Park tensed beside her, his jaw tight. Kilo's antenna had gone completely flat against his head in fear. Finally, Chen nodded once. Director Chen of Earth acknowledges the Krath Empire's ultimatum. Timestamp. Standard Galactic Time, 14 hours 47 minutes and 33 seconds. 48 hours from this moment. Except Krathener seemed almost disappointed. Just like that? You've made a declaration. I've noted it for the record. What else needs to be said? The Krath warlord stared at her for a moment, then laughed again. The stories of human courage were greatly exaggerated. 48 hours, Director? Count them carefully. He turned and strode from the chamber, his heavy footsteps fading. The moment he left, chaos erupted. Delegates rushed to the human section, offering support, asking questions, expressing shock. Chen raised her hand, and the crowd quieted slightly. The human delegation thanks the council for their concern. We will handle this matter appropriately. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. She gathered her tablet and walked toward the exit. Commander Park and Kilo followed quickly. Once they were in the private corridor outside, Kilo finally spoke, his voice trembling. Director Chen, the Krath fleet is massive. They've never lost a major battle. What are we going to do? Chen's calm expression never changed. Exactly what I said, Kilo. We're going to neutralize the threat. But how? 48 hours isn't enough time to mobilize a defensive fleet or evacuate the colony. We won't need to evacuate anyone, Commander Park said quietly, a thin smile crossing his face. And we won't need 48 hours. We'll need 47, Chen corrected. I want them to sweat for that last hour. She looked at her tablet, already filling with incoming messages from Earth Command. The Krath made a mistake today. They assumed that because we choose not to fight wars, we've forgotten how to win them. They're about to learn the difference between not fighting and not knowing how to fight. Kilo looked between them, confusion and worry battling on his face. I don't understand. Chen's smile was cold and precise. You will, Kilo. In 47 hours, the entire galaxy will understand exactly what humanity means by neutralization. She opened a secure channel on her device. This is Director Chen. Authorization code Delta 7. Begin threat assessment protocol. Krath Empire. Full spectrum analysis. I want every asset we have focused on this. The voice responded immediately. Understood, Director. Initiating protocol. How deep do you want us to go? Chen's eyes were hard as steel. All the way. The Krath wanted to see how humans handle threats. Let's show them. The Galaxy Council was stunned. Humans don't wage wars. They neutralize threats. Part 2. The 47-hour window the Krath Imperial War Command Center hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed the massive fleet assembling in orbit above the Krath homeworld. 317 warships, the largest battle group deployed in over a decade, floated in perfect formation against the darkness of space. Admiral Varoctor stood on the command platform, his chest swelling with pride. Around him, junior officers coordinated the final preparations for the strike against the human mining colony. Admiral, all fleet elements report ready, his second-in-command announced. We can depart within 6 hours. No rush, Varoctor replied, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Let the humans sweat. We gave them 48 hours. We'll arrive with 12 hours to spare and watch them scramble. Perhaps they'll beg. Do you think they'll actually fight? Another officer asked. Varoctor laughed, a deep rumbling sound. The humans. They're merchants and diplomats now. They talk about neutralizing threats like that means something. When they see our fleet, they'll understand what real power looks like. Across the command center, screens showed tactical readiness reports. Supply lines confirmed. Communication networks operating at full capacity. Defense satellites armed and ready. Every military installation across the Krath Empire buzzed with activity. This would be a demonstration that would echo across the galaxy. Send a message to all ships, Varoctor ordered. In 2 days, the Krath Empire reminds the galaxy why we are feared. Victory and glory to the strong. The command center erupted in cheers and war cries. Meanwhile, 3 systems away, the human diplomatic vessel Constellation maintained standard orbit above a neutral station. Inside its main conference room, a very different kind of preparation was underway. Director Chen stood before a massive holographic display that filled an entire wall. Unlike the Krath's military formation maps, this display showed something far more comprehensive. Networks of data flowed like rivers of light economic data. Communication intercepts, shipping routes, military installations, power grids, and infrastructure maps, Port Chen said quietly. Commander Park stood next to the display, manipulating data streams with practiced efficiency. Intelligence Division has completed preliminary mapping. We have current locations and status on all 317 Krath warships. We've identified 47 primary military command centers, 233 planetary defense installations, and 15 orbital weapons platforms, communication infrastructure, 17 primary relay stations, 42 secondary nodes, and hundreds of minor transmitters. Their entire network routes through 3 central hubs on the homeworld. Economic targets: 73 major manufacturing facilities, 31 shipyards, and 12 resource processing centers vital to military operations. Kilo watched from the corner of the room, his eyes wide. He had thought he understood what human diplomatic work looked like. This was nothing like what he expected. The detail was staggering. The humans weren't just tracking the Krath military, they were mapping the entire Empire's nervous system. How long have we been gathering this information? He asked hesitantly. Chen glanced at him. Active collection started 8 months ago when we noticed increased Krath fleet movements. But we've been maintaining basic profiles on all major powers for years. It's standard protocol? Standard protocol? Kilo Centeni trembled. You map out entire civilizations just ... Routinely? Not to invade, Commander Park explained, but to understand. To prepare. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to prevent conflict is to be ready for it. If you know exactly how your potential opponent operates, you can usually find ways to avoid fighting altogether. And if you can't avoid fighting, Kilo asked, then you already know exactly where to hit to end things quickly, Chen replied. She turned back to the display. Show me the psychological profiles. A new section appeared, displaying detailed files on Krath leadership. Admiral Vrukter's face appeared prominently, along with dense information about his background, decision-making patterns, and personality traits. Vrukter is aggressive, but predictable, Park noted. He follows traditional Krath military doctrine precisely. He'll want to arrive early to intimidate, probably with a standard battle formation designed to maximize visual impact. Weaknesses in their doctrine? Plenty. The Krath rely heavily on centralized command. Their ships have individual captains, but major tactical decisions flow from flagships. Their communication systems are robust, but not redundant. You cut the primary channels, subordinate vessels become confused. Chen nodded, studying the data. What about their cyber defenses? A young woman appeared on a smaller screen. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez from Earth's Cyber Warfare Division. Director, their network security is about what we expected. Strong by galactic standards, but they rely too much on physical isolation. They assume because their military networks aren't connected to civilian infrastructure, they're safe. They're wrong. Access points? We've had backdoors in their primary systems for 6 months. They upgraded their encryption 3 weeks ago, but it took our AI about 14 hours to crack it. We can access 90% of their military infrastructure whenever we want. Kilo felt his legs go weak. He sat down abruptly. You've already infiltrated their military networks? The Krath, who are supposed to have the best security after the Talvern? Security is about layers and assumptions, Martinez explained. The Krath assume physical security equals digital security. They also assume no one would dare infiltrate their systems because the consequences of being caught would be severe. They're not completely wrong. It took years to position our assets carefully enough that we could access their networks without being detected. Chen studied the overall picture, her mind working through scenarios. Timeline. If we execute now, how long to achieve full neutralization? Commander Park consulted with specialists on various channels, then looked up. With current asset positioning, we can achieve 95% mission success in approximately 3 hours. Full confirmation of results would take another 2 hours. Casualties? If we execute perfectly, 0. We're not targeting personnel, just infrastructure and systems. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Kilo watched her, beginning to understand something that terrified him. This wasn't a military preparing for battle. This was a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. Every cut planned. Every action calculated. Nothing left to chance. Director Kilo said hesitantly. The Krath gave you 48 hours. If you can do this in hours, why wait? Chen turned to him and her expression was serious. Because neutralization isn't just about capability, Kilo. It's about message. If we act too quickly, other species will think we were already planning to attack the Krath. If we wait until the last moment, we demonstrate 2 things. First, that we're patient and not reactive. Second, that we're so confident in our capabilities that we don't need preparation time. It's psychological warfare, Park added. We're not just stopping the Krath threat. We're teaching the galaxy a lesson about what happens when you threaten humanity. Kilo looked at the massive display with all its data, the detailed maps, the comprehensive intelligence. Does every species know you do this? That you watch everyone like this? Most suspect, Chen said. Some know. But seeing it and experiencing it are different things. The Krath are about to experience it. She turned back to the display, her voice becoming formal and cold. All teams maintain current readiness. Continue monitoring Krath activities. If they make any unexpected moves, I want to know immediately. Otherwise, we proceed at the 47-hour mark. Confirmed. Voices responded across multiple channels. Chen looked at the countdown timer floating in the corner of the display. 46 hours and 12 minutes remaining. Kilo, she said. In 2 days, you're going to witness something that will change how you see the galaxy. Humanity doesn't wage wars because wars imply 2 sides fighting with uncertain outcomes. What we do is remove uncertainty. We identify the problem, calculate the solution, and execute with precision. It sounds cold, Kilo said quietly. It is, Chen agreed. But it's also more merciful than traditional warfare. More Krath soldiers will go home alive after this than if we fought a conventional battle. Their civilians won't see their cities destroyed. When this is over, the Krath Empire will still exist. It just won't be able to threaten anyone. She gestured to the display showing the Krath fleet. Those 300 ships represent thousands of lives. Traditional warfare would destroy many of them. We're going to defeat that entire fleet without firing a single shot at it. Kilo looked at her with a mixture of awe and fear. The council called you diplomats. But you're not, are you? Commander Park smiled slightly. We are diplomats, Kilo. This is diplomacy. We talk, we negotiate, we seek peaceful solutions. But we're also prepared for when talking fails. The difference is that we've thought through every scenario so thoroughly that when we finally act, it looks like magic. Chen pulled up a final display, a complex timeline showing the next 47 hours broken down into precise segments. Set Condition 2 throughout the task force. All personnel on standby. This operation goes exactly as planned. No improvisation, no deviations. Understood, Park confirmed. As the meeting dispersed, Kilo remained seated, staring at the countdown timer. The Krath thought they had 48 hours of dominance left. The human director had given them 47 hours of false security in less than 2 days. The galaxy was going to learn what humanity meant by neutralization, and Kilo had the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The Galaxy Council was stunned. Humans don't wage wars, they neutralize threats. Part 3. The neutralization. Countdown timer on Director Chen's display showed exactly 1 hour remaining. 47 hours had passed since the Krath ultimatum. Across the galaxy, thousands of eyes watched and waited. In the Galactic Council chambers, an unofficial gathering had formed. Representatives from dozens of species monitored the situation, unable to look away. The human mining colony on Titan had not been evacuated. No human military fleet had been deployed. To most observers, it looked like humanity had simply accepted its fate. "The humans have done nothing," Ambassador Thelrax said, his voice worried. "The Krath fleet will arrive in 1 hour. This will be a massacre. Perhaps they plan a last-minute defense," suggested Representative Quali, though her tone suggested she didn't believe it. The Drachner delegate shook his head. "No fleet can deploy quickly enough now. The humans have abandoned their people." On the command platform of the Krath flagship Dominator, Admiral Vruktar watched his fleet approach human space with satisfaction. His 317 warships moved in perfect formation, a display of overwhelming force. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons charged, targeting solutions locked. We'll be in firing range in 58 minutes, Excellent, Vruktar replied. "Open a channel to the human colony. Let them know their time has expired." The communication officer worked for a moment, then frowned. "Sir, I'm getting interference. The signal keeps dropping." "Interference? From what? I'm not sure, sir. It's like the communication network is ... stuttering." "Out!" growled. "Compensate for it. I want those humans to hear their doom approaching." But even as he spoke, the first warning lights began appearing on tactical displays throughout the bridge. Minor at first, a sensor glitch here, a communications delay there. Nothing that seemed serious. Then, at exactly the 47-hour mark, everything changed. On the human diplomatic vessel Constellation, Director Chen spoke one word: execute. Across the vast distances of space, hundreds of carefully positioned assets activated simultaneously. Human cyber warfare specialists, who had spent months infiltrating Krath networks, unleashed programs that had been waiting dormant. Satellite arrays hidden in deep space sent precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Agents embedded within Krath space initiated their final protocols. The effect was immediate and devastating. Admiral Vruktar's command screen flickered, then went dark. What just happened? "Get that display back online." His crew frantically worked their controls. Around him, more and more systems began failing. Not gradually, all at once, as if someone had flipped a switch. "Sir, I've lost contact with the second attack wing. Engineering reports main power fluctuating. Weapons systems offline. I can't explain it. Navigation is down. We're maintaining course but can't adjust." Vruktar stared in disbelief as his mighty flagship began going dark, system by system. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the bridge in red. The massive holographic tactical display that showed his entire fleet winked out of existence. "Get me ship-to-ship communication," he roared. "I need to know what's happening to the rest of the fleet." "I'm trying, sir, but the entire communication grid is compromised. I'm getting nothing but static." What Admiral Vruktar couldn't see, what none of the Krath could see, was that his crisis was replicated across every single warship in his fleet. 317 vessels were simultaneously losing power, weapons, navigation, and communications. The pride of the Krath Empire was being systematically shut down, but it wasn't just the fleet. On the Krath homeworld, the lights in the military command center suddenly died. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but the damage was done. Every screen, every display, every communication link was dead. "What's happening?" demanded the defense minister, his voice echoing in the dim emergency lighting. "Unknown, sir," his aide replied frantically. "It's not just us. I'm getting reports from across the planet. Every military installation is experiencing simultaneous system failures." "That's impossible. Our networks are isolated." "I know, sir, but it's happening anyway." Across Krath space, the story repeated. Orbital defense platforms went silent. Planetary shield generators powered down. Communication relays stopped transmitting. Military shipyards found their systems locked and unresponsive. Every single piece of military infrastructure that the Krath Empire relied upon simply stopped working in the Galactic Council chambers. The representatives watched in stunned silence as reports began flooding in. The feeds they were monitoring showed something unprecedented. "The Krath fleet has gone dark," someone announced in disbelief. "All ships are broadcasting automatic distress signals, but they're not responding to hails." "It's not just the fleet," another voice added, shaking. "I'm receiving reports from contacts in Krath space. Their entire military infrastructure has gone offline." Ambassador Thelrax turned to stare at the human section where Commander Park sat calmly, monitoring his own displays. "What have you done?" Park looked up, his expression neutral. "I'm sorry. What was the question?" "The Krath. Their fleet, their defenses, everything has just failed simultaneously, has it? How unfortunate for them." The Dreckner delegate approached, his scales rattling with agitation. "This is your doing. This is an act of war." "Is it?" Park replied calmly. "Have we fired any weapons? Have we destroyed any ships? Have we killed anyone? You've crippled their entire military. We've neutralized a threat, exactly as Director Chen said we would. The Krath Empire declared war on us. They gave us an ultimatum. We responded appropriately." On the Constellation, Director Chen watched multiple displays showing real-time results. Every target they had identified was now neutralized. The operation had gone exactly as planned. "Casualty reports?" she asked. "Zero confirmed casualties on either side." Commander Park's voice came through her communicator. "All Krath ships are intact but non-functional. Military personnel are all accounted for. No civilian infrastructure has been touched." "Communication status?" "We've left civilian networks operational. The Krath leadership can still communicate domestically. They just can't coordinate military operations." Lieutenant Martinez appeared on screen. "Director Cyber Operations were 100% successful. Every backdoor performed as expected. Their systems are locked down tight. Even if they bring in outside experts, it'll take weeks to regain control, and that's if they even figure out what we did." Chen nodded. "What about their attempts to counter-intrude?" Martinez smiled slightly. "They tried. As soon as their systems started failing, their cyber warfare teams attempted to trace the source. We fed them about 1,000 false leads. They'll be chasing ghosts for months." Kilo had been watching everything in silence, his antennae flat against his head. "Director, the Krath homeworld's planetary shields are down. They're completely defenseless." "Only militarily," Chen corrected. "Their civilian life support, power grids, and essential services are all untouched. The Krath people will continue their daily lives normally. We only neutralized military capability. But they're vulnerable now. Any of their enemies could attack them, which is why we're going to make sure no one does." Chen opened a new communication channel. "This is Director Chen to all Galactic Council members. Please return to the Council chambers. We need to discuss the new situation." Within the hour, the Council chamber was packed. Every species present wanted answers. The massive display at the center of the room showed the Krath fleet, still visible on sensors but completely powerless, drifting in formation. Director Chen stood at the podium, her expression calm. "The Krath Empire issued an ultimatum to humanity. They threatened to destroy our colony and take 10 additional systems. We have responded by removing their capacity to carry out those threats. You've crippled an entire empire," shouted the Krath ambassador, who had rushed to the council as soon as he received news. "This is an act of unprecedented aggression." "Is it?" Chen's voice remained level. "Let's review the facts. How many Krath ships have we destroyed?" The ambassador hesitated. "None. But how many Krath soldiers have we killed?" "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point. Every single Krath warship still exists. Every soldier is alive. Every civilian is safe and unharmed. We have not invaded your territory, bombed your cities, or harmed your people. We have simply removed your ability to threaten others. You call this mercy?" The ambassador spat. "Yes," Chen replied simply. "A traditional war would have resulted in thousands of deaths on both sides. Dozens of ships destroyed, potentially orbital bombardments and ground invasions. Instead, Your empire remains intact. Your people are safe. You've lost only one thing: the ability to wage war. Representative Quali's voice trembled as she spoke. Director Chen, how is this even possible? The scale of what you've done. You've neutralized an entire military infrastructure across multiple star systems simultaneously. Preparation and planning, Chen answered. Humanity has learned that the best way to prevent war is to be ready for it. We've spent years understanding how every major power operates. Not to attack them, but to ensure that if someone attacks us, we can respond with precision instead of devastation. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some species expressed outrage, others fear, and a few showed grudging respect. Ambassador Thelrax raised his voice above the chaos. Director Chen, a question everyone is thinking. If you could do this to the KRATH, could you do this to any of us? The chamber fell silent. Every representative stared at Chen, waiting for her answer. Chen let the silence stretch for a long moment. We could, she finally said, her voice carrying clearly through the quiet chamber. But we won't, unless you force us to. Humanity doesn't seek conflict. We don't want to control others, but we will not be threatened, and we will not allow aggressive empires to endanger innocent lives. She looked directly at the Krath ambassador. Your empire can choose what happens next. You can accept our offer to help restore your systems in exchange for verified disarmament and peaceful integration into the galactic community. Or you can remain as you are, defenseless, hoping your many enemies don't notice your vulnerability. The ambassador stood silent, his face twisted with rage and helplessness. The choice, Chen continued, is yours. But make it quickly. Because right now, the entire galaxy knows the Krath Empire has no military capability. And I imagine there are quite a few species who remember old grievances. She turned to address the full council. Humanity is willing to guarantee Krath security during their transition to peaceful participation in galactic affairs. But that offer expires in 72 hours. After that, they're on their own. Director Chen gathered her materials and stepped down from the podium. As she walked toward the exit, the chamber remained in stunned silence. Kilo caught up with her in the corridor. Director, was that really necessary? Threatening them like that? Chen stopped and looked at him. I didn't threaten them, Kilo. I gave them a choice. The Krath understands only strength. Now they know we have it. But more importantly, the entire galaxy knows that humanity's strength isn't about destruction, it's about precision. We can remove threats without mass casualties. That's the real message here. And what if other species decide you're too dangerous? What if they unite against humanity? Chen smiled slightly. Then they'd better be very sure they want to try. Because now everyone knows humanity doesn't wage wars. We solve problems. And we're very, very good at it. She continued walking, leaving Kilo standing in the corridor, trying to process what he had witnessed. The galaxy had just learned a new definition of power, and nothing would ever be the same. Hash. The Galaxy Council was stunned. Humans don't wage wars, they neutralize threats, hash hash. Part 4. The Aftermath, and Revelation 3 days after the neutralization. The Galactic Council chambers had transformed into something resembling an emergency crisis center. Representatives from across the galaxy had arrived, demanding explanations, seeking assurances, and trying to understand what humanity had actually done. Director stood before a closed-door session of the Council's Security Committee. Unlike the public chambers, this room was smaller and more intimate. Only the most powerful species in the galaxy had seats here, and the atmosphere was tense. Director Chen began High Chancellor Mordax of the Talvern hierarchy, his crystalline form pulsing with barely controlled emotion. We have spent the last 72 hours investigating your operation against the Krath. What we've discovered is deeply disturbing. I'm listening, Chen replied calmly. Mordax gestured and a holographic display filled the center of the room. It showed a complex web of connections spanning the entire galaxy. This is what our intelligence services have uncovered. Humanity has been running covert observation and infiltration operations on virtually every major power in known space. For years, murmurs of shock and anger rippled through the assembled representatives. "You have agents embedded in our governments," continued Mordax. "Backdoors in our military systems, detailed psychological profiles of our leaders, complete maps of our infrastructure, our economies, our vulnerabilities." His form flashed bright red. "You've been preparing to do to all of us what you did to the Krath." Chen didn't flinch. "That's not entirely accurate." "Then explain," demanded Ambassador Zorath of the Unified Clans. "We found evidence of human intelligence operations in 27 different sovereign systems." 34, actually, Chen corrected quietly. "Your investigators missed a few." A room erupted in outrage. Several representatives stood, shouting accusations. Chen waited patiently for the noise to subside. Finally, High Chancellor Mordax restored order. "You admit it, then? You've been spying on your allies. We've been gathering information," Chen said. "There's a difference." "A difference?" Zorith's scales rattled. "You can disable our militaries with a thought. How is that not a threat?" Chen looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each representative. "Tell me something. How many of you have intelligence services that monitor other species? How many of you have contingency plans for conflicts with your neighbors?" She paused. "All of you, I'm guessing. The difference is capability and scope. You're claiming this is normal." Mordax demanded. "I'm saying this is prudent. After the fall of humanity's first empire, after our own devastating wars that nearly destroyed our species, we learned a critical lesson. The best way to prevent conflict is to understand it so thoroughly that you never need to engage in it."
Ambassador Thelrax,
who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Director Chen, understanding is one thing, but you demonstrated the ability to shut down an entire empire's military infrastructure simultaneously. That goes far beyond simple intelligence gathering." "It does," Chen agreed, "and I won't apologize for it. The Krath threatened us with total annihilation. Should we have accepted that? Should we have fought a conventional war that would have killed thousands? We chose a third option, a terrifying option," Representative Qualley said softly. "Director, do you understand what you've revealed? Every species here is now asking the same question. If the Krath angered you, you could do that to them. What's stopping you from doing it to us?" Chen was silent for a moment. "Nothing," she finally said. The room went completely silent. "Nothing is stopping us," Chen continued, "except our principles, our values, our commitment to using force only as a last resort and only in the most precise way possible." She stood and walked to the holographic display, pointing at the web of connections. "Yes, we've been gathering information. Yes, we've positioned assets. Yes, we could, theoretically, neutralize any military in this chamber. But we haven't, and we won't. Unless you force us to." "That's a threat," Mordax said coldly. "No, it's a promise. Humanity doesn't want to control the galaxy. We don't want war. We don't even want dominance. We want to live peacefully, trade freely, and explore the universe. But we will never again be vulnerable to anyone's aggression." Zorath leaned forward. "You're asking us to simply trust that you'll never use this capability against us."
"Oh,
"I'm asking you to look at our history. When has humanity ever attacked first? When have we invaded territories we weren't invited to? When have we demanded tribute or submission?" Chen's voice remained steady. "We've been members of this council for 47 years. In that time, we've been mediators, peacekeepers, and traders. We've shared technology. We've helped negotiate treaties. We've never started a conflict until now," someone muttered. "The Krath started this conflict," Chen corrected sharply. "They issued an ultimatum. They threatened genocide. We responded. But even in our response, we killed no one, destroyed nothing that couldn't be restored. The Krath Empire still exists. Their people are safe. We gave them a choice, peace or vulnerability. That's more mercy than they showed us." Ambassador Thelrax sighed heavily. "Director Chen, I believe your intentions are genuine. But you must understand the position you've put us all in. Every government represented here is now under pressure from their own people to either align with humanity for protection or to unite against you as a threat. I understand, Chen said, and I'm sorry for that. But I won't apologize for protecting my people or for being good at it. High Chancellor Mordax dimmed to a contemplative blue. We need to discuss this privately. Director Chen, if you would give us the room. Chen nodded and turned to leave. As she reached the door, Mordax called out, Director, one more question. The Krath had the fourth largest military in the galaxy. Very advanced technology. Strong encryption. Significant cyber defenses. Yet you penetrated all of it. How? Chen looked back. Because we've been preparing for this kind of scenario for decades. Because we take security seriously. Because we understand that in the modern galaxy, information is more powerful than weapons. She paused. And because we're very patient. The Krath got sloppy. They thought their physical security was enough. They were wrong, and the rest of us. Zorith asked. Are we also wrong? Chen met his gaze steadily. That depends on your definition of security. If you think isolation and secrecy keep you safe, then yes, you're wrong. If you think alliances and transparency create stability, then you're on the right track. She left the room, and the door sealed behind her. In the corridor outside, Kilo and Commander Park waited. Kilo's antennae were twitching nervously. How did it go? About as expected, Chen replied. They're terrified and angry. They'll need time to process, Director Park said quietly. We're getting reports from our embassy networks. At least 15 species are calling emergency cabinet meetings. There's talk of forming a coalition. Against us or with us. Both, actually. Some want to ensure they're on our good side. Others want to find a way to counter our capabilities. Chen smiled slightly. Good. Let them try. If they improve their security because they're worried about us, the galaxy becomes safer for everyone. They walked together through the station's corridors. Kilo struggled with something, finally speaking up. Director Chen, I've been thinking about something. You said humanity learned from your past. What exactly did you learn? Chen stopped walking and turned to face him. We learned that war is the result of failure, Kilo. Failure of diplomacy. Failure of understanding. Failure of imagination. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We had wars that killed millions. We developed weapons that could destroy entire planets. And we came very, very close to making ourselves extinct. She continued walking slowly, her voice thoughtful. After the final war, when humanity finally unified, we made a decision. We would never be victims again, but we would also never be monsters. We would be strong enough that no one could threaten us, but restrained enough that no one would need to fear us. Is that even possible? Kilo asked. We're trying to find out. The Krath situation was a test of that philosophy. Could we defend ourselves without becoming the aggressors? Could we neutralize a threat without becoming one ourselves? She looked at Kilo. I think we succeeded, but others will judge. They reached the human diplomatic ship's docking port. As they prepared to board, an urgent message came through Park's communicator. He listened, his expression growing concerned. Director, we have a situation. The Vecran Assembly has just announced they're withdrawing from the Galactic Council. They're calling for a new alliance of species to counter human influence. Chen absorbed this information calmly. How many are joining them? Early reports suggest 4 or 5 species. Not a major coalition, but significant enough to cause diplomatic problems, and the Krath, still silent. Their government is in chaos. No response to our restoration offer yet. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. The Vacorn were always aggressive toward expansion policies. Probably see this as an opportunity to position themselves as defenders of sovereignty. What do we do? Kilo asked. Nothing, for now. Let them form their alliance. Let them make their speeches about human danger. Actions speak louder than words. The galaxy will judge us by what we do, not what others say about us. She looked at both of them seriously. We knew this wouldn't be easy. Changing how an entire galaxy thinks about conflict and power was never going to happen smoothly. There will be resistance. There will be fear. But there will also be species who look at what we did and realize that there's a better way than endless military escalation. And if the Vecran Alliance tries to challenge us directly, Park asked. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then we'll demonstrate again that humanity doesn't wage wars. We solve problems, efficiently, precisely, and with minimal collateral damage. She paused. But I hope it doesn't come to that. I genuinely hope the galaxy can learn from the Krath example without needing more demonstrations. They boarded the ship, and as the doors closed behind them, Kilo realized something. The humans weren't done. This wasn't the end of their planet, it was just the beginning. Director Chen had said humanity wanted peace. But they had just proven they had the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, the ability to end conflicts before they truly began. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would accept this new reality or try to fight it. And Kilo suspected that answer would determine the future of every species in the Council. Back in the security committee chambers, the representatives sat in heavy silence after Chen's departure. Finally, Nordak spoke. So, what do we do about the humans? Ambassador Zareth's scales rattled softly. What can we do? They've proven they can disable any military in the galaxy. Fighting them would be suicide. Allying with them might be worse, another representative argued. We'd be admitting they're superior. They are superior, Thalrak said quietly. At least in this. The question isn't whether to fight or ally. The question is, do we want to live in a galaxy where conflicts are resolved through precise neutralization or through massive warfare? You're defending them? Someone asked incredulously. I'm being realistic. The Krath threatened to destroy a human colony. In any other scenario, that would have meant war fleets clashing, planets bombed, thousands dead. Instead, the Kraths are intact but unable to harm anyone. Their people are safe. No one died. Thelrax looked around the room. Is that not preferable? The representatives exchanged uncertain glances. The humans have changed the rules, Mordak said finally. Whether we like it or not, whether we trust them or not, they've demonstrated a new kind of power. We can either adapt to this new reality or spend our energy trying to recreate the old one. And which do you suggest? Zoreth asked. Mordax's crystalline form shifted to a contemplative purple. I suggest we watch very carefully. The humans say they want peace. Let's see if their actions match their words. If they prove trustworthy, perhaps this is the beginning of a more stable galaxy. If they prove otherwise, he didn't finish the sentence, because they all knew the truth. If the humans proved otherwise, there might not be anything they could do about it. The galaxy had entered a new era, and humanity had just announced that they would be writing its rules. Hash. The Galaxy Council was stunned. Humans don't wage wars. They neutralize threats. Part 5. The new understandings, 6 weeks, had passed since the Krath neutralization. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality, and the Galactic Council chambers were more crowded than they had been in years. Today's session would determine much about the future. Director Chen sat in the human delegation section, reviewing reports on her tablet. Beside her, Commander Park monitored incoming communications while Kilo, who had become Chen's permanent assistant, organized diplomatic files. Director Kilo said quietly, "The Krath delegation is here. They brought their new prime minister." Chen looked up. Entering the chamber was a smaller Krath delegation than usual, led by a female Krath that Chen recognized from intelligence briefings. Prime Minister Saratha had been a civilian administrator before the neutralization. Known for her moderate views and diplomatic skills, the military leadership had been quietly removed from power in the chaos that followed. Saratha approached the human section directly. Other delegates watched with intense interest. Director Chen, Saratha said, her voice formal but not hostile. "My government has reached a decision regarding your offer." "I'm listening, Prime Minister." "The Krath Empire accepts your terms. We will undergo verified disarmament of all offensive military capabilities in exchange for humanitarian assistance. In restoring our systems and guaranteed security during our transition period." A ripple of surprised voices moved through the chamber. The Krath had been silent for weeks. Many had expected them to refuse out of pride. That's a wise decision, Chen said. Humanity will honor its commitments. Our technical teams can begin restoration work immediately, and will coordinate with the Council on security guarantees. Saratha hesitated, then spoke more quietly. Director, my people need to understand something. When you disabled our military, you also saved it. Not one ship was destroyed. Not one soldier died. In our history, we've waged many wars. None ended with such mercy. She paused. Why? You could have destroyed us. Chen stood and gestured for Saratha to walk with her to a quieter corner. The chamber watched but couldn't hear their private conversation. Prime Minister, humanity learned something painful in our history, Chen said. Destroying your enemies doesn't end conflicts. It creates new ones. The survivors remember. They rebuild with revenge in their hearts. True peace doesn't come from destruction. It comes from changing the fundamental dynamics that created the conflict. So you neutralized us to change us. We neutralized you to remove the immediate threat. But we're offering restoration to give you a choice about what kind of civilization you want to be. The Krath have been warriors for centuries. That's brought you power, but also endless conflicts and constant military spending. You could use this transition to become something different. Saratha's expression was complex. Many of my people see this as humiliation. I understand, but humiliation fades. Death doesn't. Your soldiers are alive. Your cities are intact. Your economy can recover. You have options that most defeated empires never get. Chen's voice was gentle, but firm. Prime Minister, the question isn't whether you were defeated. The question is what you'll build from here. They returned to the main floor. Saratha addressed the full council. The Krath Empire formally requests the Council's assistance in our transition to a peaceful member state. We acknowledge our past aggressions and commit to a new path. High Chancellor Mordak stepped forward. The Council accepts the Krath request. You will establish a monitoring commission and provide the support necessary for this transition. He looked at Chen, with human technical assistance, as agreed.
As
Saratha's delegation took their seats, Ambassador Zoareth approached Chen. His earlier hostility had evolved into something more cautious. Director Chen, the unified clans would like to discuss establishing clearer communication protocols with humanity. We believe better coordination between our intelligence services might be mutually beneficial. Chen understood what he was really saying. The unified clans wanted to ensure they stayed on humanity's good side. We'd welcome that discussion, Ambassador. Transparency and cooperation strengthen everyone's security. Over the next hour, similar conversations happened throughout the chamber. Species that had been suspicious were now seeking dialogue. The message was clear. The galaxy was adapting, but not everyone was happy about it. Ambassador. Velker of the Vekern Assembly stood to address the council, his voice carrying bitter anger. I see many here celebrating this new order. Forget that we've just witnessed a single species demonstrate the ability to cripple any military in the galaxy. The humans speak of peace, but they've achieved dominance through intimidation. Ambassador. Velker Chen said calmly, humanity has made no demands. We've claimed no territory. We've imposed no tribute. How is that dominance? You don't need to make demands when everyone is too terrified to oppose you. You've created a galaxy where everyone must either submit to your goodwill or live in fear of neutralization. Several representatives looked uncomfortable. Velker's words touched on fears many shared. Chen stood and addressed the full chamber. Ambassador Velker raises a concern that deserves a serious response. So let me be absolutely clear about humanity's position. She walked to the center of the chamber. It's true that we demonstrated capabilities that many find frightening. It's true that we could, theoretically, disable military systems across the galaxy. But let me ask you something. Was the galaxy safer before? When the Krath could threaten genocide without consequence. When military power was measured only in the ability to destroy? She looked around at the assembled representatives. Humanity doesn't want a galaxy where everyone fears us. We want a galaxy where aggression itself becomes impractical, or threatening your neighbors brings swift, precise neutralization rather than prolonged warfare. Where the calculation changes from can we win to Is conflict worth losing our military capability without even fighting? You're describing deterrence through fear, Velker argued. I'm describing deterrence through certainty. There's a difference. Chen's voice remained level. In the old model, wars happened because aggressors believed they could win. They calculated risks and decided violence was worth it. We've changed that calculation. Now, potential aggressors know that threatening others results in neutralization swift, certain, and unavoidable. Ambassador Thelrax spoke up thoughtfully. Director Chen, what you're describing is essentially forcing peace through overwhelming capability. But what happens when humanity itself becomes aggressive? Who neutralizes you? The chamber went silent. It was the question everyone wanted answered. Chen was quiet for a long moment. That's a legitimate concern, and I don't have a perfect answer. Humanity could become what we claim to oppose. Power does corrupt. We could abuse our capabilities. She paused, then continued. But I can tell you what we've built into our systems to prevent that. First, our neutralization capabilities require consensus from multiple branches of our government. No single human can activate them. Second, we've committed to transparency about our defensive actions. Every neutralization will be documented and justified to this council. Third, we welcome oversight. If the council wants to establish an independent monitoring body to track our activities, we'll cooperate fully. You'd allow others to monitor your intelligence operations? Velker asked skeptically. To a degree, yes. We won't compromise operational security, but we'll accept accountability for our actions. If humanity ever uses neutralization for aggression rather than defense, we should face consequences. High Chancellor Mordax's form pulsed with interest. You're proposing formal oversight of your capabilities? I'm proposing that we codify what happened with the Krath into official council policy. Create clear definitions of what constitutes a neutralization-worthy threat. Establish review processes. Make it a council-sanctioned tool rather than a unilateral human action. Chen looked around the chamber. We don't want to be the galaxy's police, but we're willing to be part of a system that prevents aggressive warfare. Sparked intense debate. Some species supported the idea, seeing it as a way to legitimize and control human power. Others worried it would institutionalize human dominance. The discussion continued for hours. Finally, Representative Quali proposed a compromise. What if we establish a conflict resolution protocol? Any species facing existential threat could petition the council. If approved by a supermajority, humanity would be authorized to conduct neutralization operations. This way, it's not humanity acting alone, but the council acting through humanity's capabilities. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Chen conferred quietly with Commander Park. It's risky, Park said. We'd be giving the council veto power over our defensive actions, but we'd also be legitimizing our approach and building in accountability, Chen replied. Long term, it's better than having the galaxy unite against us. She stood, Director Chen speaking. Humanity accepts Representative Quali's proposal in principle. We're willing to discuss the details of a conflict, a resolution protocol that would allow council-authorized neutralization operations. This announcement shifted the atmosphere. What had seemed like human dominance suddenly became collaborative security. Over the following weeks, the details were negotiated. The protocol established clear criteria for neutralization authorization, requiring evidence of imminent existential threat and approval from 70% of the Security Council. Humanity would conduct the operations but report comprehensively to Council oversight committees. It wasn't perfect. Some species still distrusted human power. The Vecran Assembly refused to participate, but most of the galaxy recognized that something fundamental had changed for the better. 3 months after the Krath neutralization, Director Chen stood in an observation deck overlooking Earth. Commander Park joined her. Holding 2 cups of coffee, the Krath restoration is ahead of schedule, Park reported. Their military is being restructured as a pure defense force. Early reports suggest their economy is actually improving without the military spending burden. And the Council's conflict resolution protocol? Ratified by 82% of member species. We've already received 3 petitions all border disputes. nothing requiring neutralization. But the process is working. Species are talking instead of threatening. Chen sipped her coffee, looking out at Earth. You know what's strange? I thought we'd face more resistance. More attempts to counter our capabilities. Some species are trying, Park said. The Talvern have upgraded their cybersecurity significantly. The unified clans are developing new encryption protocols. But mostly they're focusing on not giving us reasons to act, which was always the point. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Park said quietly, Do you think we did the right thing? Really? Chen considered the question carefully. I think we did a necessary thing. War was the default solution for too long. Entire species measuring their worth by their capacity for destruction. We offered an alternative. Not perfect, but better. Some will say we're imposing our values on the galaxy. They'd be partially right. We are saying that aggressive warfare is unacceptable. That threatening genocide has consequences. That might makes right is no longer a valid philosophy. Chen looked at her reflection in the viewport. But aren't those values worth spreading? Elsewhere in the galaxy, in the restored Krath Command Center, Prime Minister Saratha met with her cabinet. The room was different, now still functional, but less militaristic. Civilian advisors outnumbered military officers. The latest economic reports, Saratha said, reviewing data on her screen. Industrial production, up 17%. Trade agreements with 6 new species. Unemployment down. Our people are ... adapting. Her military advisor, General Torkvan, spoke reluctantly. Prime Minister, there are still those who believe we should rebuild our offensive capabilities, that we should find ways around the neutralization. Saratha looked at him steadily. General, I'm going to tell you something that might be difficult to hear. The humans didn't just disable our military. They disabled a way of thinking. For generations, we believed that strength meant the ability to destroy. That respect came from fear. That our purpose was conquest. She gestured to the economic reports. Look at these numbers. We're more prosperous now than we were during our empire's height. Our people have better lives. Our neighbors don't fear us, which means they trade with us. We're building something new. Something that might actually last. But we're weak, Torkvan protested. No, we're different. There's a distinction. Saratha stood. General, the humans taught us something important. They proved that real power isn't about destruction. It's about precision. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they changed us. That's a kind of strength our empire never possessed. Back on the constellation, Kilo found Director Chen in her office, reviewing the day's reports. Director, I've been working on something, he said nervously. A paper about human conflict resolution methodology. I'm hoping to present it at the next Galactic Security Conference. Would you review it? Chen smiled. I'd be happy to, Kilo. You've learned a lot these past months. I've learned that everything I thought I knew about power was wrong, Kilo said. I used to think the strongest military won, but you proved that the smartest approach wins. You didn't just defeat the Krath, you made them allies. We gave them a choice, Chen corrected. They made themselves allies by choosing wisely. Kilo sat down. Director, can I ask you something personal? Were you ever scared? During the Krath crisis, when you were planning the neutralization, did you worry it might go wrong? Chen was quiet for a moment. Every moment, Kilo, I worried we'd miscalculate, that someone would die, that we'd become the monsters we claimed to oppose. Fear is healthy, it keeps you careful, but you went ahead anyway. Sometimes doing nothing is worse than the risks of action. The Krath threatened genocide. Doing nothing would have guaranteed deaths. Acting precisely gave us a chance to prevent that. She looked at Kilo seriously. But I'll never celebrate what we did. Neutralization isn't victory, it's tragedy prevention. The real victory is every day afterward, when we don't have to do it again. As the months passed, the galaxy continued evolving. The conflict resolution protocol was invoked twice both times. The mere threat of neutralization convinced aggressors to back down. No actual operations were necessary. Species began investing more in economic development and less in military expansion. The phrase solved, not fought, became common, diplomatic language. Wars didn't disappear entirely, but they became less frequent and less devastating. Humanity's role shifted from potential threat to reluctant guardian. Other species didn't love them, but they respected the stability that human capabilities had created. And in the end, perhaps that was enough. In the final scene, Director Chen retired from diplomatic service 5 years after the Krath neutralization. At her retirement ceremony, representatives from across the galaxy attended, including Prime Minister Saratha. Director Chen Saratha said during her speech, "You once told me that true peace comes from changing the dynamics that create conflict. The Krath people, thank you for giving us the opportunity to change. We're not the empire we were. We're something better." Chen accepted the various honors with quiet grace. When it was her turn to speak, she kept it brief. "I didn't change the galaxy alone. We all changed it together by choosing to try something different. By recognizing that strength without wisdom is just violence, and wisdom without strength is just hope. We found a balance." She paused. "War isn't natural or inevitable. It's a choice. And we proved that there are other choices, harder choices, but better ones." As she left the ceremony, Kilo caught up with her one last time. "What will you do now, Director?" Chen smiled. "Rest. Read. Maybe teach. Pass on what I've learned to the next generation. You think they'll need it? Your lessons about neutralization? I hope not. I hope the galaxy has learned enough that neutralization becomes obsolete. That the mere knowledge of its possibility keeps everyone honest." She looked up at the stars visible through the station viewport. "But if they do need it, I hope they remember. Neutralization isn't about power. It's about protection. The moment it becomes about dominance, we've lost everything we tried to build." She walked away, leaving Kilo standing under the stars, thinking about a galaxy that had learned to solve its problems instead of fighting them. A galaxy where humanity's greatest weapon was knowing when not to use weapons at all, and somewhere out, among those stars, former enemies were becoming partners. Military budgets were becoming education budgets. And warfare was slowly becoming a memory of a less enlightened age. The galaxy hadn't achieved perfect peace, but it had achieved something better. A framework where peace was the logical choice. And that, Director Chen thought as she looked back one last time at the stars, was the only kind of peace that ever lasted. The end.